Imagine a country where the land runs out before the soul does, where cliffs plunge into an Atlantic that has carried explorers, merchants, and dreamers for over 500 years, where you can stand at the westernmost point of continental Europe at Cabo da Roca near Sintra and feel like you are standing at the edge of the known world. Portugal is not a large country, roughly the size of the American state of Indiana, but within its borders, life unfolds in ways that feel both ancient and impossibly fresh. For centuries, this narrow strip of the Iberian Peninsula looked outward. Its ships sailed to Brazil, to Africa, to Asia. Its sailors mapped oceans that no European had ever crossed, and yet today, the gaze has reversed. The world now looks toward Portugal. People from every continent are arriving, not to conquer, but to stay, to build a life, to slow down, to taste something real. What does it actually mean to live here? Not to visit for a week with a camera and a guidebook, but to wake up here, to work here, to raise children here, to grow old here. This is the Portugal you do not see in postcards. From the granite villages of the north to the whitewashed towns of the Alentejo, from the cobbled alleyways of Alfama in Lisbon to the terraced vineyards of the Douro Valley, this is daily life as it is truly lived. If you are new to this channel, we bring you inside the world's most fascinating places, not as a tourist, but as someone who belongs. Please subscribe now so you do not miss the next journey. Now, let us step inside Portugal. Portugal occupies a slender rectangle along the western edge of the Iberian Peninsula, bordered by Spain and the vast Atlantic. It is a country of dramatic contrasts packed into a small space. Drive 3 hours, and the landscape transforms completely. In the north, Minho wears green like a second skin. This is the wettest part of the country, home to Peneda Gerês, Portugal's only national park, where wild horses still roam granite mountains and the air carries pine and eucalyptus. Winters here are cold, and rain can fall for days. The Douro region tells a different story. The river cuts through terraced hillsides, cultivated for wine for over 2,000 years, one of the oldest demarcated wine regions on Earth. The slopes are so steep, every grape must be harvested by hand. In summer, temperatures exceed 40 degrees. Further south lies the Alentejo, a vast, sparsely populated plain of wheat, olive groves, and cork oak forests. The sky here seems bigger than possible. Whitewashed villages cluster on hilltops, their narrow streets designed for shade. The summer heat is a physical presence. Then comes the Algarve, golden cliffs, hidden coves, and sea stacks rising from turquoise water. Beyond the resort towns, the wind-scoured western coast near Sagres draws surfers chasing Atlantic swells, while the interior remains surprisingly rural with ancient almond and carob trees. Offshore, the Azores archipelago, 9 volcanic islands nearly 1,500 kilometers west of Lisbon, feels like another country. Hot springs bubble from the earth at Furnas on São Miguel. Hydrangeas line every road. On Pico, farmers grow grapevines within stone enclosures called curés, built to block the Atlantic winds. 4 seasons can pass in a single afternoon. To the south, Madeira rises from the ocean like a floating garden. Its steep volcanic slopes are crossed by levadas, irrigation channels dating to the 15th century, revealing landscapes of almost tropical lushness. This geographical diversity shapes everything: what you eat, how you build, the rhythm of your day. Portugal's geography is not a backdrop, it is a participant. Morning arrives gently in Portugal. The light here is different, softer, golden, filtered through the Atlantic haze in a way that painters have tried to capture for centuries. In Lisbon, the day begins with the sound of the electric trams grinding up the hills of the old quarters. In Porto, the fog rolls in from the Douro River and hangs over the Ribeira district until mid-morning, muffling the sounds of the city into something almost dreamlike. For most Portuguese, the morning starts early, but not frantically. There is a deliberate pace to daily life that visitors often mistake for slowness. It is not slowness, it is presence. The first coffee of the day is not grabbed from a drive-through window. It is taken standing at the counter of a pastelaria, a neighborhood pastry shop, as an espresso, called simply café, is pulled and served in a matter of seconds. The ritual takes 2 minutes, but it sets the tone for everything that follows. Across the country, the rhythm of the day shifts with the geography. In the northern city of Braga, the religious heart of Portugal, mornings often begin with a visit to one of the city's many churches. The scent of incense and old stone lingers in the air. In the fishing village of Nazaré on the central coast, the day starts at the harbour, where boats return before dawn with the night's catch. Fish is auctioned on the dock as the sun rises over the Atlantic. By 9 in the morning, the day's work is already half done. The midday meal is sacred. Lunch in Portugal is not a sandwich eaten at a desk. It is a proper, hot meal, often lasting an hour or more. In smaller towns, businesses still close between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. The tradition of the long lunch is under pressure from modern work schedules, especially in Lisbon and Porto, but it persists stubbornly in much of the country. A typical lunch might be grilled sardines with boiled potatoes and a salad of tomato and onion in the Algarve, or a robust cozido, a boiled stew of meats and vegetables, in the Trás-os-Montes region of the far northeast. The afternoon unfolds more slowly. In the hottest months, particularly in the Alentejo, the hours between 2 and 5 in the afternoon can feel suspended in amber. Streets empty, shutters close. The only sound is the occasional bark of a dog or the distant hum of a tractor. This is not laziness. It is adaptation to a climate that demands respect. When the sun begins to soften, life resumes. Evenings in Portugal belong to the community. As the heat of the day fades, neighbors emerge. In the Bairro Alto district of Lisbon, the narrow streets fill with people of all ages, young couples, elderly men playing cards on makeshift tables, families pushing strollers. The same scene plays out in different forms across the country. In Évora, the ancient university town in the Alentejo, students gather in the main square of the Praça do Giraldo. In the mountain village of Monsanto, built among and beneath enormous granite boulders, the evening gathering might be just a handful of families sharing a bottle of local wine as the sun sets over the plains below. Dinner happens late, by Northern European standards, rarely before 8, often closer to 9 or 10 in the summer months. The meal is simpler than lunch: soup, bread, cheese, perhaps some grilled fish or cured sausage. What matters is not the complexity of the food, but the company. Eating alone is almost unheard of. Meals are communal by default. To understand Portugal, you must understand the Portuguese home. Family is the central institution of Portuguese life, and the home is its sanctuary. It is not unusual for multiple generations to live under one roof or within a few streets of each other. Grandparents, parents, and children form a tight social and economic unit that has survived industrialization, emigration, and the rapid modernization of the last 50 years. The architecture of Portuguese homes tells the story of the land from which they rise. In the north, traditional houses are built of dark granite, with thick walls designed to keep out the winter cold. The kitchens often still feature a large open fireplace, where in the coldest months, a pot of caldo verde, a soup of kale, potato, and chorizo sausage might simmer all day. In the Serra da Estrela, the highest mountain range in mainland Portugal, some villages still preserve houses built entirely of schist, their dark stone blending so perfectly with the landscape that from a distance you might not see them at all. In the Algarve and much of the Alentejo, traditional architecture takes a different form. The houses are whitewashed, with flat roofs and distinctive chimneys, some plain, others intricately latticed, like lacework in clay. The white walls reflect the fierce summer sun. The small windows keep interiors cool. Blue or yellow trim around doors and windows, a Moorish influence, adds the only color to what might otherwise feel austere. Then there are the azulejos. These glazed ceramic tiles are not decoration. They are identity. In Porto, the São Bento railway station is sheathed in over 20,000 tiles depicting scenes from Portuguese history. But azulejos are not limited to grand public buildings. They cover the facades of ordinary apartment blocks in Lisbon, entire churches in the town of Ovar, and the interiors of countless family homes. They tell stories. They mark status. They keep buildings cool by reflecting heat. A Portuguese home without azulejos is like a Portuguese conversation without gestures, possible but somehow incomplete. The family structure itself is undergoing transformation, particularly in the cities. In Lisbon and Porto, young couples are marrying later. The birth rate has fallen below replacement level, as it has across much of Europe. Young adults increasingly live with their parents well into their 30s, less by tradition than by economic necessity, a reality we will return to when we discuss the country's challenges. Yet the bond between generations remains remarkably strong. Sunday lunch with the extended family is not a special occasion. It is the default. When an elderly parent needs care, the first instinct is still to bring them home rather than seek an institution. Children in Portugal occupy a special place. They are welcomed into every space, restaurants, cafes, public squares, in a way that surprises visitors from more child-segregated cultures. A toddler wandering between tables at 10 in the evening is not a nuisance. It is simply life. The idea that children should be seen and not heard has never taken root here. Portuguese food is built on simplicity: olive oil, garlic, fresh herbs, and above all, fish. Portugal consumes more fish per person than any other EU country. The national obsession is bacalhau, salted cod, with the most beloved version being bacalhau à brás from Lisbon's Bairro Alto. Shredded cod with fried potatoes, scrambled eggs, onions, and black olives. Each region has its signature. Porto claims the francesinha, a tower of cured ham, sausage, and steak under melted cheese, drowned in spicy tomato beer sauce. The Alentejo favors açorda, a rustic soup of stale bread, garlic, coriander, and poached egg. The Algarve is the kingdom of grilled sardines, celebrated each August at Portimon's Sardine Festival. On Madeira, espetada, garlic and bay marinated beef grilled on skewers, defines celebrations. Portuguese wine has transformed in recent decades. The Douro Valley produces both port and acclaimed dry reds. Minho gives us vinho verde, light and perfect with seafood. The Alentejo delivers bold reds, and Pico in the Azores yields wines of remarkable minerality from volcanic soil. No discussion of Portuguese food is complete without the pastel de nata. These custard tarts originated at the Jerónimos Monastery in Belém in the early 19th century. The original recipe remains a secret of pastéis de Belém. Eaten warm with cinnamon and a small coffee, they are a national ritual. Culturally, Portugal is defined by fado, UNESCO-listed music born in the Alfama district of Lisbon. Its name means fate, and its aching sound captures saudade, a deep, melancholic longing with no English equivalent. It is not sadness, but the ache that makes joy meaningful. For decades, Portugal was described as the poor cousin of Western Europe. The economy lagged behind. Wages were low. Young, educated Portuguese left in large numbers, seeking opportunity in France, Germany, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. That picture has changed considerably, though not completely. The Portuguese economy today is diverse and growing, though wages remain lower than the European Union average. The average monthly salary in Portugal hovers around 1,200 to 1,300 euros. In Lisbon, where the cost of living is significantly higher, the average can reach closer to 3,000 euros in professional sectors. But these figures mask enormous variation. A waiter in a small restaurant in the interior might earn the national minimum wage of around 800 euros per month. A software engineer at a tech company in Porto might earn 5 times that. The economic geography of Portugal is sharply uneven. Lisbon and its surrounding municipalities generate a disproportionate share of the country's wealth. The tech sector has boomed here in the last decade. The Web Summit, one of the world's largest technology conferences, moved to Lisbon in 2016 and brought with it an influx of startups, venture capital, and international talent. The neighborhoods of the Parque das Nações, built on the site of Expo 98, now house gleaming offices where coders and designers work alongside colleagues from a dozen different countries. Porto, the country's second city, has followed a similar trajectory, though at a smaller scale. Its historic center, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is now dotted with co-working spaces and boutique design studios. The city has carved out a reputation as a hub for creative industries, architecture, graphic design, fashion. Outside the major cities, the economy tells a different story. Agriculture remains central in regions like the Alentejo, where vast estates produce cork, olives, and wine. The cork oak forests of this region supply a significant share of the world's cork. Tourism has transformed the Algarve and increasingly the coastal areas of the Alentejo. The northern interior and the border regions with Spain have struggled with depopulation as young people leave for the cities or for other countries. The work culture varies by region and sector, but some patterns hold across the country. The workday typically starts around 9 and ends around 6 or 7. With the long lunch break we discussed earlier, relationships matter enormously in Portuguese business culture. Trust is not assumed. It is built slowly, over coffee, over lunch, over months. Decisions that could be made in a single meeting in Northern Europe might require 3 or 4 in Portugal, not because of inefficiency, but because consensus and personal connection are valued more highly than speed. Portuguese social life revolves around 3 things: food, faith, and festas. The festival calendar is dense and deeply felt. Nearly every town and village has its own Saint's Day, celebrated with processions, music, fireworks, and food that is prepared for days in advance. The largest and most famous is the Festa de Santo Antonio in Lisbon, held every June. Saint Anthony is the patron saint of lost things and matchmakers. On the night of June 12th, the old neighborhoods of the city transform into one enormous street party. The smell of grilled sardines fills every alleyway. Makeshift stalls sell beer and sangria. The traditional manjerico, a small basil plant, is given as a token of love, accompanied by a handwritten poem. At midnight, the city's skyline explodes with fireworks launched from a dozen different locations. In the northern city of Viana do Castelo, the Romaria de Nossa Senhora da Agonia in August draws thousands to witness women dressed in elaborate traditional costumes, layered with gold jewelry passed down through generations. In the town of Tomar, the Festa dos Tabuleiros, held every 4 years, features a procession in which women carry towering trays of bread and flowers balanced on their heads, a tradition dating back to the 13th century. Religion remains an important force in Portuguese life, though its role has shifted. The country is overwhelmingly Catholic, and the Church's influence is visible everywhere, in the architecture, in the calendar, in the rhythms of family life. But Portugal is also one of the most socially liberal countries in Europe on matters of personal freedom. Same-sex marriage has been legal since 2010. Drug possession was decriminalized in 2001, a policy that transformed public health outcomes and is now studied around the world. The tension between traditional Catholic identity and progressive social policy is not a contradiction in Portugal. It is simply the way things are. Football occupies a space somewhere between sport and religion. The three great clubs, Benfica, Sporting, and Porto, command fierce loyalty that passes from parent to child. On match days, the cafes fill with supporters. The sound of a goal being scored echoes from 1,000 open windows simultaneously, but the deepest social traditions are the quietest ones. The cafe culture, the Sunday afternoon walk, called the paseo, the long conversations that begin with a simple "How are you?" and can last an hour. In a village in the Alentejo, the social center might be the cafe next to the church. In Lisbon, it might be the kiosk in a neighborhood square, where older men play cards while young parents chase toddlers. What unites them is the same thing that has always defined Portuguese social life: the belief that time spent with others is time well spent. Portugal is a wonderful place to live, but to pretend it is without challenges would be dishonest. The housing crisis is the most pressing issue. In Lisbon, rental prices have doubled in the last decade. A one-bedroom apartment in the center now routinely costs over €1,000 per month, impossible on a minimum wage of around €800. The situation in Porto is only slightly less acute. In Alfama, Lisbon's oldest district, some streets now have more short-term tourist rentals than permanent residents. The crisis has spread to the Algarve, Coimbra, and Braga. The government has introduced measures, but the problem is structural and solutions will take years. Bureaucracy is the second great challenge. Administrative systems are famously slow. Obtaining a driver's license, registering a car, or securing a residence permit all demand paperwork, patience, and often inside knowledge. For immigrants, the wait times have become a national frustration. The wage gap with Western Europe remains significant. A teacher here earns less than half what a teacher in Germany earns. Many households rely on the informal economy to supplement formal salaries. The rural interior continues to empty. Villages in Trás-os-Montes, the Beira Alta, and the deep Alentejo lose population year after year. Schools close. The elderly remain, while the young leave for the cities or abroad. Emigration remains a quiet, persistent reality. More than 2 million Portuguese citizens live abroad, roughly 20% of the population. Every family has a story of someone in France, Switzerland, or Luxembourg. This long history of departure has shaped the national character, a resilience born of loss, a practicality born of knowing the people you love might one day live on the other side of an ocean. Portugal is a country in conversation with its past. Sometimes that conversation is harmonious. Other times it is strained. Walk through the center of Lisbon and you can feel the tension. Centuries-old azulejo facades sit next to sleek, glass-walled co-working spaces. A woman in traditional black, the widow's dress still worn by some older women in rural areas, boards a metro train alongside teenagers filming TikToks. This duality plays out in countless ways. The Portuguese language preserves a formal register, the use of o senhor and a senhora, that has been largely abandoned in other European cultures. Young people still use these forms with elders and strangers. It is a small thing, but it signals an intergenerational respect that has survived the digital revolution. Yet technology has been embraced with remarkable speed. Portugal was an early adopter of contactless payments. The multi-banco network, introduced in 1985, remains one of the most advanced ATM systems in the world. You can pay taxes, buy concert tickets, or top up a mobile phone at any machine. The country has become a testing ground for renewable energy, with wind turbines spinning on ridges from the Minho to the Algarve. In 2023, Portugal generated more than 60% of its electricity from renewable sources. The tension between old and new is perhaps most visible in food and agriculture. Traditional methods persist. Shepherds still tend flocks in the Serra da Estrela, and salt is still harvested by hand in the salt pans of Aveiro and the Algarve. But organic farming is growing. Young Portuguese are returning to the land, not out of necessity, but out of choice, bringing with them modern techniques and marketing savvy. The same dynamic shapes family life. The traditional expectation that children will care for aging parents remains strong. But the practical reality, smaller families, more women in the workforce, greater geographic mobility, makes this harder to fulfill. Nursing homes, once rare and stigmatized, are becoming more common, especially in urban areas. What is striking about Portugal's encounter with modernity is the lack of panic. Countries often react to rapid change with polarization, a hardening of traditionalism on one side, a wholesale embrace of the new on the other. Portugal does both. It holds on and it lets go. It keeps Sunday lunch with the grandparents and builds an app to book the restaurant. It preserves the ancient art of azulejo making while converting abandoned factories into tech hubs. This is not indecision. It is a particular kind of wisdom. The understanding that identity is not a zero-sum game. You can be old and new at the same time. Portugal has one of the highest rates of emigration in Europe, and yet it has also become one of the most sought-after destinations for people seeking a new home. What explains this? Why do people come? And just as importantly, why do they stay? The answers vary, but certain themes recur with striking consistency. The first is safety. Portugal is consistently ranked among the safest countries in the world. Violent crime is rare. Children walk to school alone. Women feel comfortable walking at night. This is not something that can be fully appreciated on a short visit. It reveals itself slowly, over months, as the absence of attention you did not realize you were carrying. The second is the pace of life. Portugal does not hurry. This can be frustrating when you need something done quickly. The bureaucracy we discussed is real, but over time, the rhythm of the country works its way into you. You start taking a proper lunch. You stop checking emails after 8 in the evening. You learn that not every minute needs to be productive in a measurable way. For people arriving from faster, more pressured cultures, this shift can feel like being able to breathe for the first time in years. The third is the people. Portuguese hospitality is not performative. It is genuine and it is startling. If you are lost, someone will not just give you directions. They will walk you there. If you are new to a neighborhood, your neighbor will bring you vegetables from their garden, or a plate of something their wife made, or simply knock on your door to say welcome. This warmth extends to foreigners. Portugal is not without its prejudices, but the dominant cultural instinct is inclusion, not exclusion. The phrase, "A minha casa é a sua casa," my house is your house, is not empty politeness. It is meant. The fourth reason is the light. It sounds romantic, even frivolous, but ask anyone who has lived here for more than a few years and they will mention it. The quality of the light in Portugal defies easy description. It has weight, texture. It turns ordinary moments, laundry drying on a balcony, an old man reading a newspaper in a square, into something worth noticing. In Lisbon, the light is a particular shade of gold that painters have been trying to reproduce for centuries. In the Alentejo, it is harsh and white and makes the landscape look like an overexposed photograph. In the Azores, it is misty and diffuse, as though the world is perpetually waking from a dream. The final reason is harder to articulate, but perhaps the most important. Portugal makes space for what matters. It does not demand that you optimize every aspect of your existence. It allows for imperfection, for slowness, for the long lunch and the unplanned conversation. In a world that increasingly treats life as a productivity problem to be solved, Portugal offers an alternative, the radical proposition that a good life is built not on efficiency, but on connection, on food shared, on time given freely, on the simple, stubborn belief that the best hours are the ones you cannot account for. Portugal will not solve your problems. The bureaucracy can exhaust you. The wages can limit you. The endless rain of a Minho winter or the brutal heat of an Alentejo summer will test your patience. This is not paradise. It is a real country, with real struggles, filled with real people, doing their best. But what it offers, what makes people stay, what makes people return, what makes people who have never been here dream of making it home, is a life that feels like a life, not a series of transactions, not a race towards some finish line that keeps moving, but a genuine, textured, human existence. The taste of a pastel de nata still warm from the oven. The sound of fado drifting from an open window in Alfama. The sight of the sun setting over the Atlantic at Cabo da Roca. The last piece of Europe surrendering to the sea. Portugal is not a country that demands your attention. It simply waits, patient as the Atlantic, until you are ready to notice it. And once you do, you may find that you cannot imagine living anywhere else. If this journey into the heart of Portugal moved you, please subscribe to this channel. We bring you inside the world's most extraordinary places, not as a tourist, but as someone who belongs. Thank you for watching.